Hey guys, Igor Hernandez here. I'm one of the attorneys at Cornish, Hernandez and Gonzalez, where I practice injury law and first-party homeowner property claims. And today I want to talk to you about what you can expect if you have an injury claim, if you have a first-party property case that's making its way through court in South Florida. What you can expect now that the pandemic is sort of coming to an end, that things are a little bit more under control, and that trials, and this is the most important part, the jury trials are back on. And so, to give you a brief breakdown as to where we've been. Over the last 13 months, there have been no jury trials whatsoever in South Florida. Not a single case has been tried to a jury that was binding, meaning you try a case, the jury says the insurance company, the insurance company owes you money and you get paid. There was a case that was tried in the beginning of the pandemic, and it was a first party property case that was tried, but it was what's called an advisory trial. It was sort of like a non-binding pilot program type stuff, just to see if it could be done, and the result did not matter. Nobody owed anybody money at the end of that trial. So that wasn't really a thing that doesn't really count, because at the end of the day, the important part of this whole thing is if you're trying cases to jury, it has to be binding, because that way the insurance company knows that if the jury says they got to pay you a lot of money, they're going to have to pay you a lot of money. So no trials realistically had happened in the last 13 months in South Florida. And so for the most part, there was two types of insurance companies and two types of insurance cases. Some insurance companies were looking at certain cases and realizing they had exposure in the case and decided to come to the table and try to settle the case for decent value, all things considered. Those cases resolved. And then there were other insurance companies in other cases that basically looked at the case and looked at the fact that no cases were being tried to juries because there were no jury trials happening. And they basically said, you know what? I'm not going to pay anything. I'm going to offer you $5 for you to go away. And if you don't like it, there's nothing you can do because no trials are happening. And so they sat back and didn't do anything, didn't make any offers on cases, didn't really try to act reasonable to settle these cases. And so now there's a backlog of cases that need to be tried that should have settled. The insurance company knew it should have settled, but it did not because it was banking on this trial moratorium to extend so they could hold on to their money for as long as possible and make money on the interest. So basically, the longer that they could stay without paying you money, the more money they were going to make. And that's just the business model that insurance companies operate under. But now there are trials happening. So here's what you can expect. You can expect a lot of cases to settle within the next 6 months to 8 months. And that is because a lot of firms, a lot of plaintiff firms are being very active, including our own, in setting a lot of these cases for trial. And so we're getting trial dates as soon as 2 months from now. We're getting trial dates 3 months from now. We're getting trial dates 4 months from now. And these are cases that everybody knew should be settled, but the insurance company decided they wasn't going to pay on it because there were no trials happening. Now that there are trials happening back on, now that we are in a posture where we're going to try this case in 2 weeks, or we're going to try this case in 2 months, or whatever the case may be, the insurance companies know that they got to pay on these cases, and they're going to come to the table with significant money. Now, that doesn't mean that the case has to settle. In fact, there are many cases in our firm right now that should not settle, that should get tried. And the fact that the insurance company did not make a reasonable offer over the last 13 months without any legitimate basis is something that we're looking at very carefully. So now it's not okay to come back and say, oh, we didn't make a legitimate offer for 13 months, but we changed our mind. We're going to offer you some reasonable value. That's just not going to cut it anymore. And the reason for that is because the last 13 months, a lot of money was spent on these cases to work them up for trial. So if they could have settled the case 13 months ago for a number, that number now has to be a lot higher because of the costs that were spent into preparing the case for trial. So if the client now takes that settlement offer, which could have been reasonable 13 months ago, that offer is no longer reasonable because the client now, out of that settlement offer, would have to pay back the costs that were spent. So the message for the insurance companies is basically, you should have settled it 13 months ago. If you're going to settle it now, be ready to pay a significant premium for the wait because of all the work and all the expenses that have gone into preparing these cases for trial. And so I don't know how the other plaintiff firms are doing it. I can tell you that from our perspective, if you should have offered reasonable value 13 months ago, and we would have accepted reasonable value 13 months ago, that number now be a lot better than it would have been 13 months ago. Otherwise, it's just not going to get it done. And so that's pretty much it for now, guys. That's what you can expect now moving forward. If you have an injury case, if you have a first-party property case, trials are happening again in Miami-Dade County. Broward and Palm Beach should follow soon, I hope. And so that means a lot of these cases are going to get lined up for trial, and most of them are going to settle. Some of them are going to get tried, but at the end of the day, a lot of these cases are going to come to a conclusion. So anyway, that's it for now, guys. I will catch you again next time.